Okay, the first thing we're going to do is go over measurements and materials, and this video will be how to put pockets without zippers inside of a bag. And for the purpose of you guys being able to see a little better what I'm doing, I'm using black for the actual pocket pieces, and I've got some white here for the lining of the bag, and some fusible interfacing, which I only have in white, so you're gonna have to trust me when I say I'm putting it on there, and it'll be on there. So anyway, the lining pieces of the bag are 18 by 16, and that's the same for the fusible interfacing. I've got 2 pieces of the fabric, 2 pieces of fusible interfacing that are 18 by 16. For the pocket pieces, I have 2 pieces that are 4 by 7. If you want to follow my directions exactly, I'm giving you these measurements, but if you want to switch things up, make a smaller bag, a bigger bag, smaller pockets, bigger pockets, you can definitely do that. Okay, and then I have 2 square pieces that are 8 by 8 for another pocket, so we're doing 2 pockets in this bag. And the first thing I'm going to do is, I'm not going to do this on camera. I have videos on fusible interfacing, which I will put in the links. If I forget, you guys comment and let me know, and I'll go right in there and put it in the direction box. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to iron this interfacing onto the lining pieces of the bag, and then I'll be back to show you the next step. Okay. Now I've got the interfacing ironed onto what will be the wrong side of the lining of the bag. So the next step is going to be to add the pockets to these lining pieces, and I'm going to do 1 piece at a time. I'm going to put this piece aside. Right there, it's not a good place, it's in the way. And I'm going to do 1 pocket on each side. So the first one I'm going to do is the square pocket, and we're only going to need 1 piece for this step right here. And we're looking at the fabric right here. This is the back side with the interfacing on it. And I'm going to take this pocket, and I want to line it up pretty much in the center. I don't want to go too far down or too far up, because we've still got to add some other elements once I start working on the bag. I'm just ironing this because it's gotten a little wrinkled. So what I'm going to do, if you want to fold it over and do the precise things, I tell you guys all the time, I don't do that unless I'm unsure, but this looks pretty even to me. So what I'm going to do is, up here is going to be the top of the bag, so I can make a little mark with my chalk. It's not going to make a difference. Just make a little T so I don't forget where I'm at. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin, ouch, my finger. I'm going to pin the pocket piece just 4 places, top, bottom, sides, just so nothing shifts around. And we would be doing this with right sides facing together, so the right side of the pocket piece and the right side of the fabric. So now what I'm going to do is figure out where I want the hole to go, and we're going to mark it with the chalk. And we want to mark a little ways from the top, leave at least 1.5 inch seam allowance at the top of the pocket piece, because we have to sew some things together, and we need about 1 inch, 1.5 inches on these sides too. So we're moving in, I'm moving in about 1.25 inches. And then I'm just gonna I'm drawing this off because it'll be a lot easier than just guessing as you're sewing. So you want to make sure that you draw this off. And chalk is great. It comes off really easily. You can take a damp rag when you're done with your work and just spot clean it. And I think that's a little too wide, so I'm coming in just a little bit with this. So now what I want to do is I want to make a center with a little triangle right there, and It's almost as if you were going to put a zipper in it, but what we're going to do is we're just not going to add a zipper. About midway horizontally, you want to make your mark. So what we're going to do is take this to the machine, and I'm going to sew around these 4 sides. So you see what I have here, and you always want to make sure that you begin and end with a good little back stitch, especially for something like this, because once you start that turning and pulling on it, stitches are just going to pop right out there. That sound effect was horrible. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first, you know, my little triangle here looks a little wonky, so I'm going to fix it a little bit. And I know I might get asked this, is it really important to do the triangle at the end? You can try it the other way. I honestly never have done it that way, and I don't think that it would fold out right. It would pinch, pucker together. You need to make sure you got the little triangles at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully poke a little hole. These scissors are pretty handy. I don't know what I did with my seam ripper, but I'm going to cut all the way down this line that I made, stopping at the triangle point. And we want to make sure we're not cutting this that we're holding on to here. And then what I'm going to do is cut that triangle to the corner of that stitch. I want to make sure you can see me. So you see, we've got that hole cut. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn this pocket to the wrong side of this fabric. Okay, now what I'm going to do, you probably would not do this if you were adding a zipper to this, but I'm going to straighten this up, and I'm going to put some pins. We're going to put them out a little ways, because all we're going to do is outline this with some thread. But we want to make sure that we don't catch anything, because we still have to sew the other part of the pocket onto here. So we have to be very careful with this step. And it helps if you just pin, 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 so that these pieces look good together. They lay kind of flat. Now I'm going to turn it over, and I'm just going to kind of sew an outline here just to keep that down, because I feel like it'll loosen up a little bit when you start using the pocket if you don't, and it could get kind of messy. So I'm going to do that just for extra measure. You don't really have to if you want to skip that step, if it's a little too complicated or fussy for you. Okay, so you can see that gives it a nice finished look, and I actually recommend doing it that way, especially if you're not adding a zipper. It looks good to me. I'm glad I did that. So now we're going to make this hole into a pocket. Okay, so what we want to do is get the other piece that we have for this pocket. I have so little room to work here, y'all, but I'm going to make it happen. And sometimes it looks like it's a little off because you've done some sewing, so things are going to change a little bit, and that's okay. What I'm going to do is just, there's a little extra on the top of this one here, so I'm going to, I'm going to trim it a little bit because I don't want to miss the edges whenever I go to stitch it. So you can do that at that point. I wouldn't do it ahead of time because then it'll be confusing. So now what I'm going to do is place some pins. Just a few pins to pin these together. And again, this is going to be on the inside of the bag. Nobody is ever going to see this part, so we're sewing with right sides together and raw edges will be showing. We won't be doing any turning after this. And we don't want to pin it to the bag because we need to lift this up. We're not going to sew this to the bag. We're going to sew the outer edges of this piece. Alrighty, so look at there. I'm going to take the pins out and I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you this. So here we go. The pocket is attached. You don't need to worry about raw edges. You don't have to trim corners. It's good to go. You see there? So there is your non-zippered pocket in the bag. So anyway, I'm going to work on the other pocket for the other side and I will be done. Peace, y'all. Bye-bye. Okay, if you stuck around this long, I just want to come in and show you right quick, and you may have seen it. I did a little speed up of me doing the second pocket. This one was really narrow, and I wanted to keep it that narrow. I didn't want to change that, so what I did was I did a zigzag stitch, kind of a tight one all the way around. Went back and double checked to make sure, and you can see it worked out nicely. So there you go. That's it. Inside pockets, people. Peace. Bye-bye.